Sid, today we're talking about creativity. So first of all, let me
Okay.
ask you, what is your approach to creativity? The theme for this year's conference is presence,
Okay.
emergence, and impact. But let's start with
Okay.
creativity in general. You know, for you, what is creativity?
So, of course, I've been working in the creative arts field since about 15 years now. And for me, it all began as a child. When I was say about 8 years old, I would find tin cans, in the house and make a drum kit out of them. So it was always about finding something which you really want to do, and finding a way to do it, even if circumstances won't allow you to. So, and there are many layers to creativity, I think.
Yes, there are, you know, and what you mentioned is like being resourceful, just finding ways to put together things that are already there in your environment and putting them, adding value by synthesizing them.
Yeah.
And so presence is about our actual being. So not just even some people, just their presence can stimulate, can influence creative action to take place, even though they don't physically actually do anything. Do you have some examples of that in your experience?
Yeah, of course. I was also a musician for some time, and this frequently happened, when we met, musicians who inspire us. So even if they are, not participating in our project or in our band, just having them, mentor us many times, would deeply inspire, creativity to flow. And apart from that, it would allow us, to try new things, which we thought is, very difficult for us. But just being in presence of, somebody who has achieved it, being in the physical presence of, such a person often makes, a huge difference, that, you start believing, that it's possible.
And do you think they have to be physically present or can it be a virtual presence? For example,
It can
now,
be virtual. I mean, they have to be in your life in some way, to provide that feedback. Basically, I think feedback has a lot of role to play there. You can get feedback, from somebody who is accomplished in a particular art. Uh, it makes a world of a difference.
and I suppose when we're talking about feedback, that's where emergence comes in because feedback, well, we can give feedback to ourselves, but very often that feedback comes from the external environment, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And so if we are not sharing our
Mhm.
creativity with others, then we're that's going to be like maybe a certain kind of creativity needs to be shared, like your music. If you're
Mhm.
playing for yourself versus when you're playing for the public, it will take on a
Mhm.
different quality, right?
Absolutely. And I mean, when you're experimenting for yourself, it's a different thing. But when there's an audience, I mean, you just have to do your best. And that's something I learned when I started working with creativity as a business. So when I had to approach brands to improve the branding of a company, or to improve the sales of a product, that's where I thought creativity can play a huge role.
And sometimes when you work with clients, maybe they have a very fixed idea of the outcome that they're looking for. But when you start working together with them, something emerges which wasn't what they planned, it wasn't what they imagined, but it's emerged as a result of more than one person working on the idea.
Absolutely. And a lot of people, I mean, especially with clients, who are not on the creative design side, who are not, by their own personality, they are not creative people. Uh, I mean, simply working with somebody creative, over even for a few months, changes that individual in a, very drastic way, that they start, believing in being more creative. So I find that transformation, when I work with leaders of some businesses, to be responsible, for the growth of the business, that ensues once the leader becomes creative too, or starts believing in creativity.
Right. And I suppose we're all creative in different ways. You know, there isn't just one kind
Yeah,
of creativity. The creativity of a musician is bound to be different to the creativity of an entrepreneur. You know, there's the
yeah,
skills may be similar, but the talent is different, right?
yeah.
So when you are doing your work and you're allowing yourself to be guided through this emergence, that those feedback loops are really important. And the
Yeah.
impact, the feedback loop between the impact and that having a transformational result on the presence. In what way have you noticed yourself being transformed through the
Mhm.
impact of your creativity?
Well, it's always about success, you know. Once you find success, it transforms you. So if your creativity leads you there, or I think that's the nature of creativity, that as long as, you know, you are being creative, you know, success is guaranteed. But being creative does not mean that you don't have to, you know, work hard. It's not like, you know, if you make a really cool video that, you know, your brand is established. It's also about, you know, putting in the hours and, you know, believing in your creativity and giving it, you know, the full chance, you know, to flourish.
And I suppose, you know, being aware that when you say you have to work hard, because a lot of that hard work will result in just failures in things that you create things that nobody appreciates, you know, so you have to keep on creating and be resilient until you create something that finally is seen to be valuable, right?
Yeah, and that's, I think that's every, you know, beginner or newcomers, you know, dilemma where they have to face failures. Of course, you know, once you are in a professional setting too, failures are always there. But the number of failures, I think, would reduce, you know, after a few years, especially in the creative field, where you, from an artist, you become a designer. So a design is different than art, because design conforms to, you know, what the audience is expecting. So as you start, you know, channeling your creativity to become a better designer, you know, chances of failures are few, and you know, that, you know, transforms, you know, your personality and, you know, your well-being.
Yeah, I suppose designing, when you're designing in order to meet a particular outcome, there's less risk in that because you know
Yeah,
what is wanted. Whereas with creativity and emergence, it's, as we
hmm,
said before, it's the unforeseen, it's the unplanned, and it can be chaotic. So to make sense
yeah,
of that chaos can be
hmm,
risky.
absolutely.
Okay. So for you, what is the difference then between being a musician and being, you know, at the moment you work in the creative industry? Are there
Hmm.
parallels or are they very different worlds?
Uh, I think that they're quite parallel, you know, like, I mean, I stopped being a professional, you know, sound designer about 10 years back. But that does not stop me, you know, from practicing, you know, what really, you know, got me into the creative field. So even now, you know, I make sure that I spend at least, you know, 5 to 10 hours a month doing, you know, my sound, doing the music. And you know, this gives you joy, and this also, you know, motivates you, you know, to do your other work, you know, better. So I think it's creativity is also nourishment for the soul, if you may.
Absolutely. And I suppose this is why it's so important to have hobbies, you know,
Yeah,
things that we're doing purely for pleasure rather
yeah,
than a financial outcome where we're restricted by the evaluation of others, where we
yeah.
don't have to care about what the public thinks. And so playing music as a hobby is very different to playing music professionally, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And I noticed that once the pressure is off, you know, it actually, you do even better work. So I mean, even when it comes to music, so I have this small record label, and actually, when I stopped working professionally, the record label took off. And while I was, you know, I mean, the sales, the music came out better, and you know, people were more trusting that there's no commercial interest in, you know, that kind of a commercial interest in the art anymore. So everything gets better, you know, especially when it comes to a hobby, you know, if you just remove the commercial aspect out of it, and then use your creativity, you know, for a business purpose. So for many times, all the youngsters, which come to me for advice, they want to be DJ or they want to be rock stars, and they're very focused that they want it as their career. So I always tell them, this is probably not a good career option, but it's an amazing hobby. So just enjoy that.
Mm. Yeah, and as they learn to express their talent through a hobby, there are chances that at some point the hobby may convert to being valuable enough to be a business. But in the early days, I
Yeah,
suppose it's best to just focus on it being a hobby,
yeah,
or have to, like have something else that we do for commercial purposes and another thing that we do to fulfill our own passions. But, you know, people try
yeah.
to people try to commercialize their passion too often, don't they?
To a ridiculous extent. So that's what I think they are making a mistake. But uh, I mean, some people do find success doing that, but it comes at a bigger cost, I think, especially with their families. So I don't always support people who just want to follow the passion but not live in the real world.
Yes. Okay, so Sid, just to sum up then, so when we're talking about presence, emergence, and impact, in what way do you think that those three things are related to each other?
Sorry, the presence and creativity.
Sorry, presence, emergence, and
Mhm.
impact. How are they related for you?
So I think they're all related. That only when you have a good balance of having a good presence, can you make an impact. So without that, it's not possible. So especially now that I'm working in the marketing and advertising field, uh, you know, uh, we have to constantly be in touch with our customers or with our audience. And if there is no presence, out of sight, out of mind, so that is there too. And then your content has to be engaging. I mean, they should agree with what you're saying. It should be interesting. It should be creative enough that it sparks their interest, and then it should be genuine enough that they can believe in whatever communication they are receiving. So creativity, emergence, and what was the last one?
Impact. Yeah.
Impact. Yeah. So
Yes.
impact is the outcome, I think, of having creativity and emerging out of it and using it basically and putting the hard work in it to create that impact.
And you make an important point that presence, can be our presence in social media. Well, we're not physically present, but we're present through our writings, through our creativity, through our networks. So presence
Yeah.
can take many shapes and forms, and it doesn't always have to be tangible. Even it can be intangible. It can be symbolic, like the brand.
Yeah.
You work with strengthening a brand, and the presence of a brand can lead to emergence of many opportunities and spaces, right?
Yeah, and also, I mean, you meet so many new people. For me, that's exciting, and you get to learn from people. And one of the important, ways to emerge and to create your own presence is to never stop learning. A lot of people, they don't want to learn anything new after a while, and I think that's what causes a lot of blocks, or stagnation, if you may, in their success. So learning is a continuous process. Everyone should learn something new every day. I think that's a good way, to make sure that you're growing.
Yeah. Okay, brilliant. Well, thank you very much, Sid. I look forward to speaking to you again very
Okay,
soon. Bye for
same
now.
here.
Yeah, bye bye.
All right, have a good.